Welcome to Lost Pinata, the podcast where we talk about navigating your creative lifestyle. I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dave. Hey, before we get started, though, if you like the program, please officially like it, follow, and share the program with your friends.
All right, so what are we talking about today, Dave?
Today, we're talking about. I'm dreading this one, but we're going to be talking about politics and art, and
Yes.
how they should influence one another. So I think I think there's a lot of I think there's we're living in an era right now where there's certainly a lot of pressure for artists to be more political, and I think
Right.
that's changed, different, certainly in the 60s, that was a big deal to
Right.
wear your politics on your sleeve.
But yeah, I mean,
Uh,
just recently there's been this whole boycott of like large corporations, companies, entertainers who've remained silent on topics. Like remaining silent isn't an option, you know?
Wait, seriously, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all over TikTok. Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, but there were definitely been decades where that's not been the norm. So I don't know. How do we want to do this, Terrence? Should we come out and just say what our general politics are? I mean,
I mean, I don't see why it's. I thought we were talking about the process of it. I mean, I don't have. I mean,
well, but that's the but I mean, okay,
okay. So,
we'll come to that if we think
well,
it's
okay. I mean, like
but
because there's a. I mean, because what I've seen a lot of like right now, as far as boycotting, the boycotts are all about the Palestinians and the Israeli conflict,
oh,
or the Hamas and Israeli conflict. Like, and
okay.
they're like, you can't remain silent. You need to say something. It's like,
Oh,
you're just, and it's just like,
that's such a
that's such a,
complex issue too. I
yeah, yeah.
Well,
So,
that's let I think that's one of my big issues with talking publicly about politics is that I think it's a real that often, the issues are often really complex, but
right,
the way that people talk about it, online is not very complex. It's usually
right.
kind of full throated polemics and propaganda and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I think art lends itself more,
Well,
doesn't always lend itself to a nuanced approach. It's because it's a very emotional communication, and it is a little bit more. I don't know. I sometimes I worry that art can be very good for kind of stirring things up,
mhm.
but I don't think it's very good necessarily at settling things.
No,
If you
but I mean, it's commentary. I think it can very easily
yeah,
be commentary. That's where I think. I mean, because a ton of art has a political meaning behind it. You
I,
might not get it, you might not know it because we're seeing it so far removed very often. But the artists themselves may have been expressing a feeling about, something specific, at that time, and it just, it shows in their art. But you know, if you're not an art history major, you might not get it. And you're just like, it's a pretty picture.
well, and oftentimes it's subtle anyway, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
you get. I remember. I'm trying to remember when it may still be the case, but Iranian cinema was highly regarded, and part of the reason why was because uh, it was clearly dealing, at least to the world outside of Iran, it was clearly dealing with political issues, but it was doing it in a way that it was managing to do it, but from a highly restrictive uh, set of limitations that the censors were pretty strong in the country, and so you would oftentimes have moral lessons playing out through children interacting, kids films, and they would kind of hide the social commentary a little bit, and I think that's been true. Anytime you're throughout history when you've been touching on a particularly touchy subject, highly censored subject, then strong metaphors are oftentimes used to deal with it, and so that way you can maybe teach people a moral lesson without banging them over the head with it.
There's a lot of like really high art that like Godzilla.
Well, Well, the most real was it.
But it does have a
It is.
whole like message behind it, and it is very political. So
Well,
you
the
know,
last Godzilla,
but I
I've
haven't
raved
seen the
about,
last one.
not Godzilla Kong movie, but the
No, the
last
one right before that.
Japanese Godzilla movie, Godzilla minus one, is very political. It's very political. Actually, I thought it was just as political as the Barbie movie, which, I thought it was in the same realm of, we're going to take this popular cultural thing. But I guess Godzilla started as a political statement to begin
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
and it became more campy as time went on.
yeah. But
But
it's
this, go ahead.
no, but it's that no, it's just the point that yeah, it is making a statement, and I mean a lot of art does that like very thoroughly, and like and I mean and you know I know I guess maybe not very nuanced in that sense. You're right, but
Well, I think I don't know, because I got a philosophy degree, and this is, one of the things for me is I really do care about having kind of a well thought out conversation with people.
mm,
I mean, I can enjoy a argument and a debate as
mm,
well, but Terrance and I both know that's. But I think that when it comes to, I think a lot of questions when it comes to talking about politics is, what is your goal, to change somebody's mind, or is your goal to fire up your side of things,
mm.
and I think art is really good at firing up people on your side. I think sometimes it can help change people's minds and
I was gonna say,
perspectives.
yeah, I was going to say I think that it's making an argument for your view, which can change minds. I mean that's if your art is I'm trying to think of what it was. But I've seen art where it's talking about basically like the like kids being killed by guns,
uh,
and you just and it's like you see it and it's like wow, when you really think about it, it's like yeah, why does this keep happening? Why are we doing it?
so is there an example of art that you found that
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
changed?
That's where like I remember seeing something that
I
was
mean, I think if
of
it's
that
something,
vein.
let's
You
see, if it's something that I don't have or haven't thought, I think raising awareness is certainly
Mhm.
something that it can
Yeah.
do. So if it's something that you don't already have an opinion on, I think actually I think it can be pretty effective that way, because it
Right.
brings people's attention to things like, oh, are they really using slave labor to produce chocolate? That sort of thing. I mean,
Mm.
that's um, and there's certainly a lot of uh, yeah, maybe I should have written down a list of things.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I should have looked into some of because like I can't like just unprompted. I don't have examples, but it's like I can think of moments. It's like I know that I've seen things that inspired me to be more involved with with political action in general. So
Yeah, yeah. So it,
I
it
mean,
can't, but you do believe that art has inspired you to actually act.
yes, yes,
Okay.
definitely, yeah,
Has it, but from an argument standpoint, that's what I want to know, is like, has it, from a debate standpoint, do you feel like once you have an opinion on something, you've researched it, you've done something, have you had a piece of art that has swayed you to, or prompted you to look at it in a different perspective?
see, I don't know about that because of the way that I think that I approach things in the first place. So, I mean, I kind of come at them from like, well, what should I think about this? And I then try to figure out my mind on that. And then, so I'm kind of like, did I make up my mind before I saw what they said, or they say what they said while I was making up my mind?
Oh,
there's very few things I can think of where I had an opinion that I really changed, over time that I went polar opposite on. It was like, oh, this I'm 100%. I was 100% against, and now I'm 100% for.
and that was a process that took time. It wasn't,
Well,
so
it
what?
was honestly, it was an argument. It was somebody made a good argument, and I was like, "Wow, that makes sense." I didn't think of it that way before, and then I changed my mind, and that
Okay, okay. So it actually was okay,
that was
but it
the
wasn't. But it
that
wasn't
was
like
honestly
art.
that was like the legalization of marijuana. Like basically,
Oh, yeah.
I was like, why bother? This is just a horrible idea. Why do we want to make more drugs available? And then when you start pointing out all the problems with the sale and transfer of it, the dangerousness of it, and like how the lack of danger, I guess, in it, and how it's no worse than like alcohol and smoke. And it's like all of these things, and it's like all these people's lives are ruined. All these people are, and it becomes this gateway drug to harder drugs because you can only get it illegally and go down that whole path. And it's like, yeah, people are dying in national parks because people are growing marijuana illegally. Like,
Yeah.
that's insane. It's like, yeah, a lot of this stuff, like, oh, yeah, all of that, when you put it like that, I'm like, wow, yeah, my mind changes. So
There's a lot of art about that was created through use of marijuana, and it's
true,
about the use of marijuana.
true.
And that could be movies, it could be music, any number of things. Did any of that sway you at all?
Perhaps in the fact that everybody's doing it. It's so common.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's so like you see through, that it's
Well,
not this, thing that's killing all these people because they smoke marijuana.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could
And
say,
then not killing people, and in fact, in some cases, clearly motivating people
right.
in the
Yeah.
arts. In some
Yeah.
cases,
And I mean, it's not, so that's,
not
that,
every.
that would be the one thing that I can think of, that like a political argument that totally
Mhm.
changed my mind.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's like when I don't know. I find that I tend to be fond of like labor issues, union stuff. So like I really love a good union fight song. If I hear
Mhm.
the Dropkick Murphys or somebody singing, getting all kind of this Irish punk, labor rights song. I love it, and I can really appreciate that. But but when you have somebody who's shouting at you about something that you absolutely disagree with, that
Mhm.
I'll usually turn it off. I'm trying to think of, well, this is one of those things, like if you're listening to music and you identify it as something ideologically opposed to what what you are, or what your ideals, um that'll turn me off. Like have you ever been like shifting through like a radio station, and you stumble upon a station, you don't know what it is, and it's like, okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for, or whatever, and then you find out it's like Christian rock station, and and I'll admit that because I am not a religious person, that'll turn me off, even if the music itself is within the same genre that I was looking at. But of course, sometimes you do have some music that is informed by, like, say, Christianity. Like Bob Dylan
Yeah.
has plenty of songs that
Yeah.
refer to Christianity, and so, but those don't necessarily turn me off. So I'm not sure, like, what's the maybe how clearly are they trying to convert you to a point of view, will definitely determine whether I want to listen to it or not.
I don't know. There are songs where, like, I know there's a song where there's a rapper has a line in it and then throws everything. I know, just it's like I just don't like that line in the song.
Well,
And but I like the song. I really like the song, and so it's like I'll listen to the whole song, and then that one line comes on, and I just like nope. But then I keep going with the rest of the song.
uh,
I just disagree with
okay.
that line.
So it doesn't
I
ruin
don't.
it necessarily for you, just to have
No, I don't like. I don't like songs where they or like, really, whenever I see somebody who's like, who wants to argue that like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, or like all politicians are the same and all the parties are the same and they're all doing the same thing, and it's like, no. I can't listen to like music that has that message where
Sure.
it's like it's all the same, everything's the same. It's like, no, that it's so like nihilist kind of to me, and
Yeah.
I can't I just can't listen to it. Like, it does, that will take me out of something. Like if it's like, yeah, there is no choice. It's all bad. It's like, no, there's
Well, that's half of punk rock right there, or like
well,
early punk rock.
there's a lot, but there's a lot that's just like, this side sucks. These people that are in charge suck. And that's different to
Well, what
say
about
that the system sucks, the people in charge suck. That's different than saying the people that are opposing one another are the same and there's no choice, and so just be apathetic and do nothing. Because that's what I hear.
okay, okay.
Anyway, like I said, it gets nihilist to me, and it's like I can't
Okay,
buy it.
so that's, yeah. So I
Those are,
don't know, but there's
so like, so for me, like having no having no choice, having no voice, kind of being anti-political might be the thing that is a problem.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So, well, but this is the thing. There is that I think we've identified that that taking a political stance, even if it's an anti-political stance, can sway
Yeah,
your audience, right?
yeah, yeah,
And and I think there's a lot of artists out there that they're maybe their focus is maybe not politics. For instance,
right.
I think Jimmy Fallon. There was a period there where he was getting a lot of pressure to uh, take a position on. I think during the Trump administration, to take a position on things politically, and he was very resistant to it because he just saw himself as an entertainer. Whereas the other late night talk show hosts were, taking very, obvious
Mhm.
standpoints. I mean, Stephen Colbert is, very
Right.
much progressive, and in fact, all of them are progressive. I think,
I think so.
except
Yeah.
except for a couple.
Bill Maher. Well, Bill Maher pretends to be.
He's like a libertarian, I think, which
Yeah, at best. Yeah.
sort of in the but he wears his politics pretty much.
Right.
Well, his show was about his big show was about politics, so I mean that's a little different.
I guess.
Um, um, so yeah, I mean that's definitely. But I guess that's the thing. If you've got a style of music, or better yet, if you've got if your political position is that you want to bring people together, you know, and that you want to find the commonalities in people,
Hmm.
uh, you know, taking hardline stances on things in the news may not actually, that may be contrary to what you actually believe. It may not be that you disbelieve. You don't. It may not be that you don't take a position one way or the other, but
But as an artist, you should be. I mean, if I can talk about, how much I care about a thing, I should do it. I mean, it's like, follow your heart and do, represent yourself as yourself. So I wouldn't be afraid to be, this is politically where I am because that's how I feel, and it's this my music, and this is what I'm doing. I mean, marketing wise, that might be a different thing, but I just kind of feel like, when I'm making art, if I think of stories I've written, like, and that were reactions to the world around me, and that they are things that I just was writing because that's how I was feeling. I wrote a story about January 6th before it happened, you and that was bizarre to me because I was like, whoa, that's really freaky. So,
sure, sure,
and it's just, but things like that, where, you're writing things that you feel about, things that you see, things that you're thinking of, and I mean, and musicians, do the same thing, and it's like you shouldn't be afraid to, put your politics out there. Just accept that. Yeah, some people aren't going to like it, but I wouldn't not do it. So, I mean, but
yeah,
at
I
the same
guess.
time, I say that, but at the same time, depends on my audience. If my audience is one that's not going to receive it, then there's no point in me giving it to them. But I doesn't mean I won't make something still. But
Well, I think this is the thing is that there's a whole bunch of stuff that you don't talk about when you're doing
right,
art,
right,
and those are oftentimes personal things, that you just don't want to get out there. But I mean, you don't talk about. I mean, it depends on your format, but it's like, do you want to talk about your grocery list or something like that? I mean, this is something that's mostly irrelevant to folks, so it doesn't really. That being said, there's plenty of people who take
politics.
pictures of their food,
I
and
was
that's
gonna say,
that's
yeah,
the other thing I think is that we live in an era right now where they don't want where the audience doesn't really want the artist to be mysterious at all. It used to be that there
right.
was a bit of a boundary
Well,
between
I
an
mean,
artist and its.
there still is, but people think there isn't because it's a manufactured now, like,
Well, but
entry
I
into a lot of people's lives too.
you're talking about. I mean, you may be talking about like really mainstream artists. They definitely have people controlling their image, but I mean, if you're marketing it, if you're trying to break into art, if you're trying to be
Mhm.
everything out there says, get personal with the audience, talk about yourself. Don't just keep it on your art. You want to find engagement with people in these personal ways.
Yeah, but I mean, this
People
goes
want to feel like they're your friend.
but
Hmm?
it goes back to the building your image, where yeah, you're still going to share things that support that image that you're putting out there too. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, certainly, certainly. But I think the point is though is that the audience is expecting a little bit more insider information
Right. Right.
about an artist than they used to,
Yeah.
and one of those happens to be I think politics. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I think that I don't have a problem with people putting their politics out there personally. You know,
Would you dump an artist though that you disagree with on various political issues?
well, it depends on what their political issues are. I mean, it really does. I mean, like, because, there are some things that, you
J.K.
know,
Rowling.
J.K. Rowling, yeah, I don't buy her stuff anymore.
Okay.
And why really it wasn't, that because I think that she started out with an argument, she started out with her opinion, but she turned on everybody who was against her in such a nasty way. There was a point where she was just like, I don't care what any of you people say. I got my royalties. And I was like, oh, it's like that. You're just like, I don't know. It was just kind of like, just made me not like her. That made me not like her more because I don't pay attention to most celebrity talk, honestly.
Uh-huh.
I could
Uh-huh.
care less about like I'm not a person that gets into their personal lives or cares. So, unless it gets to a certain point, I don't even hear about people. Um, and yeah, so she was just like, I don't know, she was just so nasty about things. And then like, she's continued to push it and push it and push it. And like everybody around her is like, kind of shut up and she's like, no, I need to and it's like, I don't know. I'm just like, yeah, I don't want a part of that. And I disagree with her. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
she
Well,
didn't endear herself to me in any way, shape or form. I mean, beyond her original statements, beyond her like continued statements and beyond her treatment of all the people who ever bought anything from her ever or cared about her characters or her stories or her product. She was just all around, I think has been a really nasty person, like really mean and really just I mean, and that's so for me it went way beyond, and it was probably because and it was the public backlash and her lashing back at the public,
mm,
whatever that is. What is that? You've got backlash and you got
the backlash lash.
yeah. So, but yeah, it was that whole interaction that made her an unsavory character for me that I no longer want to
Mm.
support in any way, shape, or form.
Though it's interesting, I think it's interesting though that I think as human beings, I think we have a hard time thinking of the world as kind of a lot of diverse voices
Mhm.
that we tend to react to the world as though it's one. I mean, unless it's somebody we have personal connections with,
Mhm.
that we tend to react to the world almost as if it's one entity. And I think that if you're a celebrity and you're getting like millions of you know backlash from people, that do you remember when there was a few years ago when Tom Hanks, somebody criticized Tom Hanks for man spreading on a subway train,
Okay.
and he responded by at one point like back off internet. And i think and i think that's i think that's how celebrities often end up
Mhm.
responding
Mhm.
to political stuff, and probably not just. I think anybody who gets like a huge number of responses one way or the other, I think they tend to respond to it. It's an overwhelm. You can't respond to every
Right.
individual that's
Right.
responding to you.
Right.
So you kind of take it in aggregate, and you're probably most concerned about the negative feedback that you get
Mhm.
instead of some of the positive ones, or whatever. But you tend to respond in aggregate, to the
Mhm.
aggregate response, and it can feel like, I don't know. I have sympathy for celebrities. I mean, I think she's making an ass of herself, but um, but having been a person who has in the past gotten into arguments and could not let go, I also understand how you can fall
Yeah.
down that
Yeah.
that rabbit hole. But well, so here's a question: if she had put her statement out and she had but she publicly stated it, but she didn't make a big fuss about it. She just was like, "Well, that's how I feel, but I don't want to discuss it." Would
You
you
know, I
would you
mean, that's,
also
I mean, that's, that's fair. That's, I don't know. It's like, I know that everybody is not going to be like, I'm pretty liberal. I'm very liberal. I can say that, and
yeah.
I have a lot of, progressive ideas on things.
Mhm.
And I know that
Me
everybody
too,
doesn't,
by the way. I want to
it's
we're
like,
kind of in the same
but
ballpark.
like everybody doesn't agree with me. And I know that. And I don't, everybody doesn't need to agree with me. I agree with me. and,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I can appreciate people without it having to be, that they are 100% aligned with me. But, you know, it's like, there are people that are vehemently against me and against, you know, my existence, or people I care about's existence. And that's something that I can't just, gloss over. So there are some topics that just go beyond, acceptance or possibility of acceptance. It's like, if you've got, I don't know, like I'm just trying to think of, like, I don't know. I can't even, because I don't swim in those waters, so I can't really think of anybody who would really. Yeah, well, like on the Mandalorian, right? You had
Uh-huh.
the. Well, I don't know that that even counts. She, the woman that got sort of
Yeah,
fired.
booted because she had conservative right wing
Yeah,
perspective on things. Yeah, and
but I mean, her whole thing was like, I don't know. To me, it was like she made a joke. I thought it was funny at first, honestly. I thought she was funny at first. Because like people were like trying to pressure her, and she's like, no, this is her perspective. This is where she is. So, and she has every right to be that. And she was like, no, and she made a little joke, and I was like, fine. But then after that, she just went. She started getting, and she probably was just getting a lot more backlash from that and responding to that, and then it made her escalate, and it escalated too far. And it's like, yeah, if I was Disney, I would be like, yeah, we're not gonna bring you back. Like,
well,
because
that's interesting because there's like, yeah, definitely, somebody
I
like
really liked her character. Honestly, I really liked her character on the show. So I was like, oh well, that was
well, yeah,
stupid.
I do. Well, I think of, because it's really pervasive. The political stuff seems pretty pervasive. That, like, if you have a job that's not even, well, social media,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for people to be very political,
Mm-hmm.
in their private life, on social media, their private life, public life, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. But it's like, there's a people might lose their jobs that are completely unrelated to that. It's one thing for a celebrity to kind of be affected by that
Mm-hmm.
because their public image is such a big part of, it's
Oh,
it's baked in. So you might, because generally speaking, I actually want there to be a separation between my personal expression outside of work and what I do for a job.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to worry about losing a job because, I said something that was, offensive.
Right.
And so, I don't know where the line draws. But I mean, for celebrities, it's a little different. I guess it
Yeah.
depends on the kind of celebrity you are. I mean, obviously, if you've got these huge contracts that have clauses in them, you've
Yeah.
actually
That,
negotiated that. That's one thing,
yeah.
and with Disney, I know that they do. They actually do have like clauses that they negotiate that say it's like, well, you can't.
Well, you can't make us look bad. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
basically.
most businesses, and that's why people lose their jobs. It's like, yeah, if you make the business look bad, if you're out there marching with Nazis, and people identify you as, hey, is this your employee? Do you have a lot of Nazis working there? Then yeah, I'm gonna, as a business owner, I'm gonna be like, no, we don't have any Nazis working here. That guy doesn't work here anymore. I mean, that's I mean, and that's just, that would be, I don't see, I can understand, issues that people have with it, but at the same time, it's like, I don't feel bad about it. I feel
I
like, most people would not want to be connected to that at all.
I'm
And
not
if
personally thrilled with that. I think people should be able to I should be able to disagree with my coworkers on things, and they should still be able to keep their jobs. But let's keep it to celebrities and art
okay,
here.
yeah, no, it's just yeah,
Topic.
no, but I mean,
So
but when you're talking about like as far as what you're doing with your art, like oh, the guy that was like smashing rats and like with the was really anti-Christian, like had the like the crucifix in the bottle of urine. Do you remember that? Like
Piss
yeah,
Christ.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's
Yeah, like when you have
back in
artists
the
that are
80s.
really like pushing that envelope of like,
Well,
and
that
that
was
you
the
get and
National
you
Endowment for the Arts.
right,
The controversy there is that he'd received
public
an
funding, yeah,
endowment, public
yeah,
funding, and so the
yeah,
question was, should he receive public funding for doing something
or
that's
something,
offensive,
yeah.
or that's
I
offensive
mean,
to because his explanation of what Piss Christ was about was
what was it about? I don't remember. I
uh,
was
his explanation was not that was that it was what I can't remember the specific explanation, but it was that it's like, well, people shouldn't be offended about it because it's about cleanliness and being, whatever. But it was,
well, like cleanliness
but
is next to godliness.
I think it's foreseeable that it would have been potentially offensive to a large swath of the public out there. Um, but yeah, that's public funding. That's a yeah, that's tricky. Um, what were we
Oh,
talking about right
I was
before?
just looking it up. I had no idea Piss Christ would get the attention it did since I meant neither blasphemy nor offense by it. I've been a Catholic all my life, so I am a follower of Christ. So like this guy that made it is actually a Christian. Um, anyway,
Well, so
anyway,
there's
but yeah,
misinterpretation. There's
yes,
one thing. It's
yes,
like
yes.
being
Well, and there,
intentionally political and provocative, and then things being interpreted that way. That's a
right,
thing right there. So
that's
accidental politics is kind
right.
of an
Yeah,
interesting.
and that's a whole other thing. Yeah, because
Well, think about how like Bruce Springsteen's "Born in the USA" was used by the Reagan campaign back in the '80s. Boy, these are we're pulling out some real fresh examples, aren't we?
what
Uh,
was that's one I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Ronald Reagan during one of his campaigns, he used "Born in the USA"
Hmm.
as a campaign, like a song that they would play while he was entering, to the campaign rallies. And
Hmm.
Bruce Springsteen asked him not to use it because like that's not what the song's about. Though that gets back to I think we were talking about what's the meaning of art at one point, and well, but if the audience gets to choose what the meaning of something is, then maybe the artist doesn't have a right to say that. But there was also there's copyright and paying
Yeah,
fees
yeah.
and stuff. I don't
But
know.
anyways,
But yeah, accidental politics and art. Um,
yeah, I think that there are a number of artists that have done the same thing with Trump. Told him not to use their music, and
yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
because they
Definitely.
don't want to. If people don't want to be associated with you, that's you
So I don't know. I guess the question though, coming back, is just like, should you be? I think it's one thing.
well,
It's like
let's
you're just
yeah.
sort of naturally bringing your politics out in your, that's one thing. But should you be compelled to express your politics?
And I feel like yeah, if you feel it, I mean, yeah, it should be. I mean, you're an artist; it's up to you, right? But know that there are speech has consequences. It's not without consequence. So you may get followers, you may get haters. You just have to decide what you're doing when you're doing it. But it's like yeah, I think there's a long and great history of political art, especially in music and well in all art. Yeah, so much art is political that just I don't think you divorce the two, or you can really divorce the two, because even if you don't intend it, it can will be viewed through the lens of society, whatever you put
Mhm.
out there, you know.
See, I tend to. I don't know. There's been so many strange artists out there, and it's I I I hate, I guess, kind of excommunicating artists because I disagree with something of theirs. I feel like there's a lot of folks that have amazing insights, into to humanity, and then they're just crazy
I was
when
like,
you're
is
talking to
that
them.
because they're, horrible, evil monsters, though, that they've peeled off
Well,
way
it might be
layers?
it could be because they might have those insights because because they're psychopaths or
Yeah,
sociopaths or
yeah.
something. I mean, or that they may have some. I mean, that's possible, and some of it is sort of like, they say it's like you don't want to see how two things you don't want to see getting made are sausage and legislation, and
I was
it's
just thinking, yeah, because like Hannibal Lecter might make a fantastic sausage, but I'm not sure.
well, he was a doctor. He was a doctor. He knew the insides and outs of people.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I just think about, and this isn't politics, but somebody like Woody Allen, I think, just has some really
Mhm.
brilliant films, and insightful films, and
Yeah.
I hate the idea of um, in Michael Jackson. There's a lot of
Well,
accusations against Michael Jackson. It's like this is genuinely great art that moves a lot of people
but
and made people
those
think
weren't,
and whatnot, and
but their issues aren't political.
they're not. You're right, but
Right? That
they're
wasn't them presenting their political ideas, and suddenly people are like, "We
well,
got
but
to
it's
cancel them."
arguably worse than that, right?
I mean, but that's then
It's
also
arguably worse than political. So, because the politics, uh, I guess the idea is if you're supporting somebody's art, I think the same argument is made. It's like if you're supporting this person's art, then you're helping you're giving them the ability to promote their beliefs more.
right, right.
And so you're saying let's boycott their art. So I guess once they're dead, I guess it doesn't really matter, right?
True.
Maybe that's the way they see it. Is like it's only when they're alive. Or here's the other way: is like, are you allowed to steal that person's art if it's valuable art, and you don't want them to get any value for it? Then maybe you should steal their art. Maybe you should sneak in to see that movie. Maybe you should steal that. Get that torrent or something.
I
Uh,
will say, on that, and like just going back to J.K. Rowling, like if my kids really wanted to read those books, I wouldn't pay, like, I wouldn't buy a new.
Go to the
I'd,
library.
I'd,
Get
I'd
it from
buy
the
a
library.
used one. I'd get it from the library. Yeah. It's
Okay.
like, I never read the books. I watched all the movies and thoroughly enjoyed them. And I felt like the books, if I were younger, would have been something that I really would have been into.
Uh-huh.
And so like, yeah, if my kids wanted to read the books, I'd get them the books, but not by buying new ones.
So there's
By,
a
you know,
good solution there. I mean, that's actually I like that. It's kind of a middle ground there. Is that if you think the art is valuable, but you
mhm,
don't want to support the artist and their political points of view,
yeah,
then buying used or getting it from the library or finding a free service
yeah,
online, depending on what it is. So that's maybe a reasonable way to do it.
yeah,
So you still get the value of the art, but you're not supporting the kind of
right,
whatever political stance that person has.
yeah,
Um, and you know what? That's the great thing actually about libraries. Makes me realize how much that using the library is in and of itself a political stance, right?
right,
Um, because all this stuff is available for free at the library.
yeah.
You
So
can actually get streaming stuff through the
yeah,
library.
yeah. No,
Uh,
I love my library.
yeah,
Love it, love it, love
and
it.
it may not be. They've got limitations on how available it is, and
Right,
that's typically the way for that kind of thing. Free stuff is like it's free, but you may have to wait.
yeah,
Um, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how that works with streaming
yeah.
services and whatnot.
Well, the stream I use their Canopy streaming, and I watch lots of stuff on there.
Do you?
And you
Yeah,
you get like you get like a certain number of things that you can watch a month, and so
yeah,
I mean, but I've also paid for other streaming services, so it's not like my only source of entertainment.
sure, sure.
But they have things that others don't that are often better. Like some
Uh
of the
huh.
art house things that I can't find other places or would have to purchase in order to see it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like that's when there's the only option is to pay $30 for a copy of it. That's like I just wanted to see it. I just it's like it sounded good. I'm curious about it. I
So
don't really
two,
want to
two
own it.
votes for the public library. All right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Public library is the best. Go out there.
How do we want to, Terrence? We're hitting the 40 minute
I
mark
know.
here. What's our
I was trying to wrap us up a
do
while
we
ago,
do we
and
have? Oh,
then
you were. I'm sorry,
yeah,
I
and
didn't
then we
catch it this time.
continued on.
Normally, I catch it when you're trying to wrap up, and then I'm like,
But
no, we should keep going. But this time, I was sort of like, I'm not sure. How do we want to wrap this up?
well, I would say so. Like all together, politics and art. Politics exist in art. It's just part of the process. I think you're going to have views and feelings about subjects, and those are going to end up in your art. Whether you like it or not, and people are going to interpret that one way or another, whether you like it or not.
So you can't escape it to some degree.
So on a level, yeah, it's inescapable. But then you can be I don't know. It's like just knowing that it's there and being mindful of it. I guess in a sense, if you want to make a political statement, knowing that it's going to get you haters and it's going to get you followers, and you just need to accept that because yeah, that's where I was saying before that yeah, you're there are consequences to your to what you put out there, good and bad, and you just have to accept that. You know.
Well, all right. Yeah, I don't. I think it's a complex issue, and I sort of suggested that we do this today, but it was because I didn't want to talk
Yeah.
about it, not because I did. It's like I find, um, I don't know. I mean, I want to have constructive engagement with folks, and I kind of feel like politics tends to be very, uh, particularly with art, tends to be kind of a full throated. Polemic. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily about having a rational discussion, and so and that's just two different parts of my life. It's like I really enjoy having. And debate. I enjoy debate as well, but I like the debate to involve. Let's cite our sources. Let's talk about examples. Let's use. Let's actually work out the weeds on things, and I don't always feel like art does that. Not to say that art can't do that. There is some very effective art out there that uses clever formatting and whatnot to bring things to the fore. But I think awareness. I think music. I think not. I'm a musician, so I think in music. But I think art is very good at raising awareness
Mhm.
of a political issue that maybe. But I don't. And I think it's very good at motivating people that already believe something. I'm I'm skeptical that it changes people's minds. That's the thing. If somebody has already decided on something, I almost feel like it may solidify that person's stance rather than change it.
And that's the thing, sometimes it just gives you a theme song for your for your next
Yeah,
chant for the next protest.
and
Because
that's
it
and that's
gets you
where
riled up. It gets what was the
and that's where I like it. I mean, it's like that can be good. I mean, they can be good, but it's like it. When I'm thinking politics, I really want to be having a constructive discussion, trying to trying to trying to convince people that I'm right, basically,
yeah.
or find out that I'm wrong. That's to me the ideal kind of conversation. And I don't know. I'd like it if art was able to do that. I just don't
Mhm.
see it very much.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Anyway,
I guess
let's.
on that high note, maybe
No,
it's time for us to wrap it up.
that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and follow and share the program with your friends. And now
Now,
it's time for you to whack your own pinata and see what shakes out.
beat it.
Get lost.